Hi there, it's Jeff here with another in our series of videos on key topics for A-level and IB and CIE economics. Today we're going to spend some time thinking about a really key topic, one that comes up a lot of times in exams, and that is the economics of price discrimination. So what is discrimination? Well, discrimination is probably best defined as when a firm, a business, charges a different price to different groups or segments of consumers for what is essentially the same good or service. But the reasons for the price differences are not to do with differences in the costs of supply. So they're using some other metrics, some other characteristics. Instead of charging just one price for the same product, they charge multiple prices. Social tariffs are in the news at the moment. BT, a couple of years ago now, announced plans to offer fibre broadband at less than half price to households receiving universal credit. During the cost of living crisis, been a lot of debate about whether utilities, energy companies, water companies, telecoms and so on should be bringing in social tariffs where the monthly fee or the subscription is lower for perhaps families on social benefits, welfare benefits. Interesting discussion. Boohoo, 3 years ago now, they were probed and found to be selling the same items of clothing, the same items, at higher prices across a number of fashion labels. A clear breach in many ways of competition policy, price discrimination in action. And the supermarkets, you probably have some in your wallet or your purse or your bag. The supermarkets use club cards, loyalty cards. Tesco, perhaps the biggest loyalty card in the country, 100% of any price discounts go to club card holders. You've been in the supermarket, you've seen the sign, club card price. The meal deal, for example, is cheaper for those with a club card compared to those people who don't. In many ways, it's a meaningful discount, and it's certainly hugely commercially successful and valuable and important for Tesco. But you're charging a different price to different groups for the same product. So, price discrimination, it happens in all imperfectly competitive markets. It's not something we associate with perfect competition with any other market. It's possible. It's most common in monopoly and oligopoly. And one of the conditions is you need to have some pricing power. You need to have a downward sloping demand curve. And why it's so important as a topic in exams is this practice. Most businesses use this, by the way. It has potentially very important welfare and distribution effects. If you get a question on price discrimination, please do use concepts such as consumer surplus, producer surplus, economic and social efficiency and welfare. You'll get the higher marks both for analysis and also for evaluation. Sometimes the question is, under what circumstances can a firm price discriminate? Well, first of all, you have to have market power. So you have to have the ability to set your own prices. So basically a lack of competition allows you to call the shots, and other conditions include things like being able to separate and segment the market, being able to find different groups with a different willingness and ability to pay. What are the aims of price discrimination? Well, why do firms do this? Okay, well, one is they want to extract consumer surplus and turn it into increased producer surplus, revenue and profit. Consumer surplus, don't forget, is the difference between the price you're willing to pay and the price you actually do have to pay. So 1, grow your revenue. 2, make more money, higher profits. Now, with this strategy, as we'll see in a few minutes with our diagrammatic analysis, the total profit will go up, providing the marginal profit is positive. You sell to another consumer, you might even be selling at a low price, but providing that revenue is greater than the cost of selling to that consumer, you will make some positive marginal profit. So price discrimination is a way of making even more profit than the profit maximizing output. And a lot of businesses use it to offload or fill spare capacity. Airlines, for example, or hotels or restaurants. Price discrimination can help a business make more efficient use of their existing supply capacity. Now, what are the main types? There are essentially 3 main types of price discrimination. First degree or perfect discrimination is where the seller, often through a sort of haggling or negotiation process, charges each individual consumer the price that they are willing and able to pay. Second degree is where you get differential pricing based on, for example, the quantity bought, or the time period, or the use of coupons. So bulk buying from a wholesaler is a way of achieving a second degree price discrimination. And if you bulk buy your loo roll or your whatever it is, kitchen roll, or your Pampers, whatever, if you bulk buy, you're going to get a lower price per unit than if you buy individually. And the most common type of price discrimination is third degree. And this is where you identify different groups of consumers with a different price elasticity of demand, and you then charge them a different price for essentially the same good or service. Let's spend a little bit of time, if it's okay with you, on first degree. So first degree is where you charge individual consumers what you are willing and able to pay. It's not always easy. We typically associate it with things like street bazaars, tourist haggling, individual negotiation between buyer and seller. So here's our analysis. Let me walk it through with you. Downward sloping demand curve for a product. The normal profit maximizing pricing output, where MC equals marginal cost meets marginal revenue, is output Q1. And so a monopolist here could just charge a single price of P1 with output Q1. There's the unit cost of producing that output. So price is above average cost. So the profit is shown there by the shaded area. In the exam, by the way, label rather than shade. But just for the purpose of this video, I've shaded the profit maximizing output, price, cost, and supernormal profit. However, some people are willing to pay more than that. So if you charge one price P1, there are some consumers who'd be willing and able to pay more than P1, the demand curve that lies above P1. So monopolists might be able to segment the market and charge a different price. If they can find those people and perhaps negotiate an individual sale with those people, they can extract more consumer surplus. For example, some people might be willing to pay P2, a higher price, sell slightly less units to those people and charge a higher price. That way you can extract more consumer surplus and extra profit. And you could go beyond P1. So for example, there might be some people willing to pay only P3. Now ordinarily if you charge P2 they wouldn't be in the market. Pardon me. But at P3, can you see there that the price is still above the cost of supply? So you're making a marginal profit, and of course you're adding to revenue if you squeeze some extra consumers out, sell those extra units at a slightly lower price. Again, you're adding to revenue and adding to profit. It's worth selling the extra units up to output Q4, where the price equals the marginal cost of supply. Don't forget, the marginal cost is the cost of selling to the next consumer. Okay, so at P4, you're getting price P4, it costs you P4 to sell to that unit, to that consumer. So at that point, the marginal profit becomes zero. You won't sell lower than P4 because it would cost you more to sell to those extra people than it would you'd get back in revenue. So in theory, there will be your revenue from just charging a single price P1, but there's your revenue if you charge prices up to and including output Q4. And well, it's better for the firm to do that, providing that the costs of segmenting the market are not prohibitive. Clearly, essentially what this does is it extracts the consumer surplus and turns it into extra revenue. It's not always easy or cost-free. There's obviously time involved, inconvenience. When you're at the supermarket, when you're at the checkout counter, maybe you should try this one day, you don't individually negotiate the price for every single item with whoever's on the tills. You accept the price and move on. There's no negotiation involved. It could be the case, for example, that doctors or physicians or physios might negotiate a price for a particular service. That clearly takes time and it could be inconvenient. Third degree. I said this is the most common. Third degree. Lots of businesses use this. Cinemas are past masters at dynamic pricing, charging different ticket prices by age. I'm now of an age to deal with the silver screen and get a discount using my senior rail card. Charging by time of showing, charging by location of cinema. Now, there could be a difference in costs, perhaps, wages and things, but it may be the case you charge a lower price in areas where incomes are lower. That will be price discrimination. Student discounts, pervasive, lots of student discounts for restaurants, for travel. Students typically have a lower income and they're more price sensitive in terms of what they're willing and able to pay. And car insurance has become quite topical because there was a dispute about the fact that car insurance companies were charging more to loyal customers who just basically carried on with their insurance, renewed by default. They didn't look to change car insurance providers. This is sometimes called loyalty premium. Paying more to be a loyal customer, should pay less. But now that's changed, as we'll see in a few minutes. So how does third degree work for a supplier? And I'm going to walk you through, if it's okay with you, quite a complex diagram. You don't have to use the full version in the exam, but if you're super confident, have a go at this diagram. She's coming up in a few seconds. Third degree is all about segmenting the market, trying to break a market up and charge. Instead of charging one price, you charge different prices to different segments. Now here's the complex diagram. In theory, you can get away with just the first two bits of this, so you don't have to necessarily do the third bit. I'm going to walk you through the whole diagram. If it works for you, fantastic. If not, just go for market A, market B, and you'll be fine. So I've split the market up. On the right hand side is the whole market, the cost of supply there. And then I've said, well, instead of just charging one price to the whole market, you can charge a different price to two different markets, A and B. Now, market A has consumers with a relatively price inelastic demand. Can you see that? Market B, demand is much more price sensitive. Two things. One, the demand's more elastic. You can see that. And secondly, they're just not willing to pay as much. That demand curve doesn't go up the y-axis very far at all. Now, if we add those two demand curves together horizontally, we get this. Don't worry about having to calculate it in the exam. It is the case that if you add those two demand curves together to get the whole market A plus B, that's what you get. There's a little bit of a discontinuity or a kink in the demand curve, because at this price, down where the second market kicks in, that's when more people join the market. Okay, so don't worry too much about this, but here we go. The firm could, in theory, just charge one profit maximizing price, P1, with a unit cost of C1, and that gives them a tidy profit shown by the green shaded area. So in the absence of price discrimination, they could charge a single price, P1, but they don't have to. Now we're going to assume here that the marginal cost of supplying the market, taken from the right hand side, is the same for both groups. So market A and market B are two different groups of consumers, but we're going to assume that the marginal cost of supply is the same. So I've drawn in MC of supply, marginal cost. Make sure that's clear in your written analysis. Make sure you tell the examiner, I'm assuming that the marginal cost is the same. Okay, what can we do? Well, in market A, we know that demand is price inelastic. The coefficient of elasticity is low. So let's profit maximize there. Let's put marginal cost meets marginal revenue output Q3 and charge a high price, PA, because we know people in PA are willing and able to pay a higher price. In market B, well, the consumers are more price sensitive, so we can sell more by lowering the price. PB lies below P1. Lower the price, sell some more units. Tap into the fact that some people are more price sensitive. Can we make money? Well, so getting ahead of myself here. Market B has a high elasticity, so you charge a low price. Market A has a low price elasticity, you charge a high price. Okay? Now we can make profit. So in market A, we can make some profit because the price we're charging is above the cost of supplying that market, and we can still make profit in market B as well, because the price we're charging that group is above the cost of supplying to that group. Assuming here that marginal average cost is the same. Now add those two orange areas together. I think, fingers crossed, I think that those two areas are bigger than the green area. So if we just charge one price, we get the profit of the green area. If we price discriminate, then we get the profit of the two orange areas added together. And I think those two areas are bigger. You want to maybe test me out on that. Make clear in your analysis, by the way, you're assuming a constant cost of supply. So constant returns. None of this diminishing returns malarkey. So the cost of supply is the same. So any price above cost means you're making a profit. And the key point here, even in market B, you can still make a profit, even if you charge a low price, because the price is still above the cost of supply. So I might be on a train this afternoon heading to the city, and somebody sat next to me who's paid a much lower price because they've got a student discount card. I'm happy for them because they've got a discount. I'm also happy for myself because I've got a senior rail card as well. But there could be a commuter paying top whack for their service. Okay. Now, the really important discussion is to what extent is this strategy of price discrimination harmful for economic welfare? Well, let's do the evaluation here. First of all, some people will pay high prices. And if you pay very high prices, your consumer surplus will go down. Okay. And the example I'm using at the moment is the insurance issue. Dual pricing and insurance. Loyal customers, and I was one. For many years, I paid more than I perhaps should have done. I was charged more than the new customer claiming and buying an insurance policy. And it was partly in inertia. I just wasn't prepared to spend the time and money to search for a better deal. Eventually, I changed that. But there's also a lack of information. It takes time and inconvenience to search for all the best prices. Secondly, price discrimination does reinforce monopoly power. So ultimately, if this leads to more monopoly power, prices will be higher in the long run, price will be above marginal cost, and allocative efficiency will suffer. And increasingly, businesses are now using algorithms to ramp up, really intensify dynamic pricing. So, the use of artificial intelligence, driven price discrimination. So, when you're booking a hotel or you're booking a train ticket or flight, etc., the algorithms really do drive price differences for the same good or service for different consumers. And there's a whole issue about the ethics of this. And there's some evidence that it's higher income families with more savings and more sort of financial stability that they can afford the multi-purchase volume discounting. If you go to the wholesaler, if you go to the supermarket, if you can afford to buy in bulk, that may favour higher income, larger families at the expense of single people who might be in stretched budgets. And it might also create some external costs. Multi-volume discount purchasing can often lead to an increase in food waste, which creates externalities. On the other hand, the insurance. I want to talk about insurance. Eventually, the Financial Conduct Authority have stepped in, and now they have made it illegal for insurance companies to charge higher prices for people just renewing their insurance than a new customer. And they reckon that's going to save over £4 billion in a 10-year period. So they've now intervened to prevent loyalty payments. What about the case for price discrimination? Well, first of all, it does help businesses make full use of spare capacity. So you make a case for saying that filling trains, filling airplanes, filling venues and things, it's a waste if you don't do that. Far better for rail companies to offer off-peak pricing, to fill those trains on a Friday. It makes the system more efficient, and there's some environmental benefits of doing that. Businesses use it to survive in a recession or after an external shock. Price discrimination is a perfectly legitimate tactic to generate extra cash. Cash keeps businesses afloat, and if businesses stay afloat, that supports jobs and maintains choice. I think point 3 is super important. Price discrimination can be used to cross-subsidise. So, for example, you might charge a premium price for some customers, but then use the profits there to offer a discount for other groups. So means-tested college fees, for example, charging overseas students full whack for university degrees might allow you to charge less for domestic students, or allow you to fund some bursaries. And cross-subsidy can allow continuation of loss-making services such as rural bus services, rural train services, so on and so forth. Profit can have a purpose. So higher profit can finance investment in research and development, which improves dynamic efficiency. And if you take a global view, price discrimination in pharmaceuticals, for example, can be quite progressive. People in high-income countries, advanced nations, paying a high price for vaccines, whereas pharmaceutical companies selling at marginal cost in countries where incomes and government funds are lower. Here's an interesting example. Progressivity of pricing at US public universities. The most resource-intensive universities in the states have increased price discrimination by income, so the students from lower middle-income families now face lower net tuition charges than they did a decade ago. So in real terms, the net tuition charges have gone down. Good example there of price discrimination being progressive. I would argue in the exam, this is a very common question. The welfare effects need to be judged on a case-by-case basis. So we know that price discrimination improves profits. The impact, the consequence depends on how a business chooses to use those profits, particularly in the areas of healthcare and education, I think. Wow, I think we've covered a lot in our time together. Thanks for staying with me if you have all the way through. This was a revision topic video on price discrimination. Super important, so common in exams. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please consider pressing the like button and subscribe, and tune in again for our next topic video. Stay safe, stay curious. See you sometime soon.